we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I apologize for not getting the minutes out sooner, but hopefully you had a chance to breeze through them and take a look real quick. So I will pass this over to Councilman Dayhoff for review and approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to glance through the minutes. You want to pay special attention to the part where I was reappointed to the Rec and Park Advisory Board, and the board had made a determination to double my salary. So with that said, may I hear a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I make a motion we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, Mr. Wogman. And may I have a second, please?
Just a
Second by Ms. Yang, my niece. All those, was there any discussion? Were there any
It
questions about
sounds
the
like there
minutes?
was.
Oh, I
Mr.
was just going to
Burrows.
say,
Oh, Josh, okay.
yeah, I can't get them to load on my computer. It says the file is corrupted. So maybe it's just me, but if I can happy to abstain, or if somebody wants to resend it to me, that would be great.
I'll be happy to resend them. I did the data migration on them, and I'm not sure exactly what the challenge was, but I can go ahead and send them out if that's okay with everyone.
Mine gave me the same error, but I think in the end I had to just click okay, like I didn't care, and it popped up anyway.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and send it out to everyone, and let's do it while I'm thinking about it. I'll just pop them in the yeah, because I did the data migration on it. I'm not sure what that challenge was, and here, let me here. Rec and Park Mins. Okay. All right. Hopefully you have them now by now, Mr. Ambrose. But let's go ahead and approve them if that's okay with everyone. We gave some extra assignments to Mr. Ambrose, but he'll find those assignments out when he reads the minutes. May all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written say aye, please.
Aye.
In the eyes of the councilman, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much.
All right, on to the next item. I apologize, my dog is going a little crazy, so if you hear lots of barking, we'll do what we can. Tahoma Farm Park, I was out at the park this afternoon, and the wonderful members of the building maintenance department, I believe, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong.
Streets Department, Public
Street
Works.
Department.
Okay, so they were out there today, and they were working hard. It was looking good. There's a giant pile of engineered wood fiber sitting there, and they are ready to start filling in the area under and around the playground equipment. So that was really exciting to see. And the grass was freshly cut, so it looked great. So I know they're starting with that tomorrow. So I thought we should probably maybe start to talk a little more formally about a ribbon cutting and what we might want that to really look like. So if there's anything we need to get before that happens, even if we don't have a date yet, we could do that. And then also continue our discussion. I know we tabled it last time, but about the park name. There were a few thoughts thrown out, mostly regarding, whether or not we have Boulder in there somewhere. I think, by the end of the discussion, that was kind of removed. We decided that might make sense. So I think the last we talked, we were close to arriving at Tahoma Farm Park as a name, so that we could give it some kind of formal name and some signage, perhaps, if that's something we want to recommend. So just thought it'd be nice to have a discussion about what that might look like, if any of you have any thoughts, or Abby, even if you have thoughts about kind of how far we want to take that, since this is one of the first things like this we'll get to do this year and in over a year.
I am in support of naming the park Tahoma Farm Park, and actually one of the requirements of the grant funding that the city received was that we do erect a sign and also give credit to DNR's Community Parks and Playgrounds program. So we are required to put a sign up, and I am perfectly happy with Tahoma Farm Park and grateful to Councilman Dayhoff for his research on the subject to make sure that we wouldn't be basically stepping on any names that were historically submitted and needing to remain in place. So I'm good with that.
Anyone else have any strong feelings or feelings at all about a name? No.
I thought it already was called Tahoma Park, so I think we're on the right path.
That was kind of the discussion at our last meeting, was whether or not there was ever really a formal name, and if so, what it may have been. So it seems it was more kind of a community name that was kind of tagged on to it, but nothing that we can find with signage or anything specific that called it Tahoma Farm Park or Tahoma Farm Boulder Park or any of the other names that we thought it may have been given at some point. So so do we need to make a motion of any sort to recommend the name at that point? I'm thinking, since we're still just an advisory board, so that we can recommend this to the mayor and
No,
common council.
we should, Madam Chair, we should have a motion.
All right, I assumed that might be the case. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We name the park Tahoma Farms Park.
Thank you, Mr. Wagman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Perfect. The ayes seem to have it. So we will formally pass this along to the mayor and common council as our recommendation to name the park Tahoma Farm Park moving forward. So
Madam
with
Chair.
that said, is there any kind of a budget, Abby? I know we were just discussing before the meeting officially started signage, but is there any kind of a budget as a part of that grant? Do we have any money or any amount that we could use specifically to do that? Or does it make sense to go? I know you were concerned with workload and things within the city. Should we look at other options, or what are your thoughts there?
So generally speaking, there is a line item allocated in the grant funding for signage, because there is that requirement to give credit to community parks and playgrounds. However, it was decided that the entirety of the grant funding would be spent on play value, which was the equipment, which is why our streets department has taken on the responsibility of spreading the engineered wood fiber. And so we have money set aside in the parks maintenance budget to erect a sign. Generally speaking, we use Woodland Signs. They've done all of the park signs throughout the city park system. And we go with a sandblasted cedar sign. So I certainly can work with Woodland Signs to come up with sort of our standard park sign in the design that's consistent with our city park system, and present that to you, a mock-up of that sign at the next meeting, or even if you'd want to move ahead with it or see it in advance of the next meeting, I could email out the mock-up prior to. So
I think it'd be great if that makes sense and we have the time to do that between now and the next meeting, that'd be great to go ahead and get that moving so we can put it into production and get that thing made so that we can get moving on in that direction as well. And then the ribbon cutting itself, I know we discussed at a number of our previous meetings the idea of anything from a simple, quick photo opportunity, and a lot of that was based on COVID restrictions and things like that. But with some of the recent developments and kind of reopening to the next level, I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on what that could look like, or how far we want to take this in terms of having members of the community present. Mr. Wagman, yes.
Abby, you would know more than me. Is there a month for Parks and Recreation that we could pony on, and then we would promote what we are doing here in the city?
Great question. And yes, Recreation and Parks Month is celebrated during the month of July. And if you wanted to defer sort of a grand opening of the park until July, it certainly would help out the Recreation and Parks Department, because we do program an event or activity every day during the month of July in celebration of Recreation and Parks Month. So if you wanted to take the wheel on one of those events and celebrate the opening of Tahoma Farm, that would be fantastic.
That's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Mr. Wagman. Is there a skeleton of what that schedule looks like already, or is that still pretty blank?
Well, we just started batting it around last week, now that we knew we could. So yeah, we have populated sort of standing events that we have offered for many years. And certainly I can get a draft format out to the group at which you can look at unencumbered dates and decide what might work best for you.
Wonderful. I
Madam
think
Chair.
if that works for the group, maybe we can do that and then make sure that's added to the agenda for our next meeting, to pick a date once we have, I would hate to take a date and then have you all have something really great that you wanted to do on that specific date.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Dayhoff.
I wonder if we could just do it during the evening of our regularly scheduled July meeting and just have our meeting out there. Would that be okay with everyone?
Can we shoot for that, Abby? And then you can tell us if that's,
I honestly can't see why that wouldn't work. Tuesdays is not a day that we would normally schedule one of our regular events. Usually we're looking at Thursdays and Fridays for those events that we've offered year after year. So that would be Tuesday, July 13th.
Mhm.
I like the idea, and also Councilman Dayhoff could provide a cookout for all of us.
I would be happy to. Along with my niece, Ms. Yang, she'll help me prepare the food.
And certainly, oh, go ahead, Josh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna note, I will be out of town that week, but certainly do not plan around me, and sounds like a great idea.
If we go ahead and agree that that would be the date this evening, then what we can do is when we actually open the park, once the engineered wood fiber is down and the safety fencing comes down and we announce on social media that it's open for public use, then we can say that it's open for public use and to stay tuned for details for the grand opening celebration on July 13th at 6 p.m. or whatever time you decide. So if we can move out of the meeting this evening with a definite, agreement on the date and time, then we'll promote that when we actually unofficially open it, just because it will be ready for use.
Does anyone else have a known conflict at this point? I know lots of summer vacations and things could collide with this date, so.
In general, my July is up in the air. But don't plan around me right now either. My husband has surgery early July. So that's why it's all up in the air about when I could be where. So yeah.
All right, well then for now, I think we can
Madam
go ahead
Chair.
and say, Councilman Dayhoff, did you have something?
Yeah, I wonder if Ms. Gruber could send something out on the Rec and Parks distribution feed about that. And I guess maybe sort of kind of, we want to wait until the sign is made to confirm that date, to firm that date up. We could firm that date up at the next meeting, perhaps. Sounds okay?
So when we announce that the park's open for public use probably next week, then you want me to abstain from saying anything about July 13th because you want to share the date up when we have confirmation on when the sign will be ready? Is
Would
that?
that be
am I
okay with
understanding?
you, or what would you suggest?
That's fine. That's,
Okay.
I will follow the recommendation of the board.
Could we make a more general announcement, just letting them know that we are looking at, stay tuned for details on a grand opening to come this summer?
Sure. That's
Maybe
good.
add an update later, and then it'll give us more reason to keep talking about it, because then we can send out something else or post something else on social media that says, and now we have a date.
Right.
Ms. Gruber, do we have, I'm trying to think, I mean, there's a lot of history for that area. But I wonder, perhaps maybe you and I could talk a little bit about, doing some sort of a write-up or whatever. Perhaps unrelated. I mean, that's where the German POWs stayed during the war. But I'm not sure how much that's pertinent to to Homa Park. I don't know. I mean, some history of the area. I mean, I talked to a lot of folks that are not aware that that was the quarry for the lime kiln.
Yeah, I think a lighter site interpretation
Okay.
may be applicable, just to explain that that was a quarry across the street. You are actually viewing the lime kilns, explain sort of what that actual function was and its meaning to industry in the area. So I think that that would probably be almost like almost like interpretive signage that we could temporarily erect, and it would be nice then actually to do something more permanent as a wayside interpretive exhibit out there in the future.
Okay.
I was going to ask that. I know at various points we've talked about that as well, interpretive signage going kind of somewhere near the lime kiln and kind of those areas. I didn't know if that was something, what we saw that timeline looking like, or if you had any idea of when that might get implemented or move forward, or if that's even that far down, I mean, that far along in terms of planning, or if that was still very hazy in terms of just a general thought of something that could happen.
Still a little hazy.
I thought maybe that was the case. Not like it was being designed right now and was in the works, but I just wanted to make sure. I think it'd be great. I mean, with the grand opening, to have some information about the area, and yes, then to whatever research or goes in, any kind of work that goes into finding out that information. Councilman Dayhoff, that can all be then used later when we have that opportunity.
That'll be
That's great.
fun. That'll be
That's a great
fun.
idea.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So then we have probably spent enough time on this, unless there's any other discussion. For now, though, let's plan on aiming for the 13th of July for the grand opening. And we will do our best to firm that up sooner than later. How long do those signs typically take to get made? Do you know, Abby?
It's usually, it really depends on his workload. So we've gotten them turned around quickly, and then others have taken longer. And sometimes that might be me just not making decisions fast enough on design. So this is a pretty standard park sign. And, we keep the design consistent. It would be more a question of what colors we would want to incorporate into the sign. And so I think we could have this quickly. We definitely could have it by July 13th, unless he's having supply issues and human resource issues in his shop. So yeah, I can check in with him fairly soon and update the board with that information.
Great, thank you.
Hmm.
All right, if there's no further discussion on this, we can move forward. None. Belgrove Square, so we left this one on here generally to see how things are going there, and then also talk again about or make sure we're still on track, thinking that September might be a good time to rededicate that. I think we might have some time there, but Aaron, I don't know, or I guess Josh as well, or Mr. Wagman. I don't know if you all have any updates to what's going on over there or what has happened now. But take it away, Mr.
Yep.
Wagman.
We met with the historic district down at Belgrove Square, and we are close to picking a site and down there for the monument, but they are still debating what to do, but we are close.
Okay. Well, that's good news that you're close. That's another one that we probably, should make sure that everything's in place before we rededicate. So that could be obviously an issue if things do move a little bit slower during the summer as people are in and out a bit. But good news that things are close to being decided upon. Mr. Ambrose, do you have something else to add? No?
No, I was unable to attend the site visit, so I'm getting updated just as much as you are.
Very good. Well, we still have time there, I think. So, we're in May. So if we hold off on any more plans for our, September event, I don't think that's the end of the world. Everybody feels strongly about moving that forward right now. Oh, she's back. But I just thought I don't want to lose this item. So I just thought we'd continue to have it on the agenda to make sure that we follow along with what's happening and then can make our plans when it's appropriate. So, I think soon we will need to start discussing what that really looks like in terms of a rededication, but we'll hold off maybe for the Historical Society unless anybody has other thoughts on that. Nope. Abby, any other thoughts on that? No.
Not at this time.
All right, so with that, Abby's got a ton of really awesome updates. So we will move on to the next item. And hopefully we get through all this. We have plenty of time, I think, because there's some really cool stuff to talk about. So Abby.
Yes, thank you. So we received another request in reference to the pickleball courts at City Park. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the proposed request. So the lines that are outlined in white in the screenshot that you can see would be the additional lines that are being requested. So the current courts closest to Main Street, so that is the Winter Street side, which you can't really see that it says Winter Street there, but it's the side that's opposing the side where you can see Long Alley listed. So they would refresh the current yellow paint and paint additional lining for portable nets to be used. So both courts would remain multi-purpose for tennis and pickleball. The court closest to Long Alley, they would, oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. So they are actually on the Long Alley side. This is just addressing the set of courts closest to Long Alley. So they would refresh the yellow paint. You'll see the set of courts, there are only yellow lines reflected on that particular court there, or yellowish green, I should say. So then next to that parallels Long Alley, you'll see the addition of white lines. That's what they'd like to add. The courts closest to Long Alley, they would add the additional lining to add 2 courts for portable nets to be used. This would also remain multi-purpose so that the tennis net can still be used. Then they will use the same green paint color on the other set of courts that was used to paint from the last go round for all the new lining. And so those are the courts on the other side, and the white, that's actually backwards. So I actually think that this should be switched retrospectively. But anyway, the white lines on the screenshot are the new lines that are being requested. And then the lines that are shown in green are the lines that exist currently. So this would just enable them to basically add additional courts for play without jeopardizing the use for tennis. And this request was sent to me, or actually brought up to me about 2 weeks ago, and I asked for them to go ahead and sketch out what it would look like when they were done. So that's what you see before you this evening. There was also another request to do some lining at JC Park, which is an option. However, that is going to take a tremendous amount of work from our streets department, because those courts actually would need resurfaced before we could put any lines down whatsoever. And it's just not something that staff has the bandwidth to accomplish at this time. So the easiest option to expand opportunities for pickleball play would be to add additional lines to the city park courts at this time. And so that is what has been submitted for discussion this evening.
So Abby, this is in addition to what we've already talked about and approved in past meetings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So is this in an effort for them to have 4 courts, I guess, in one fenced in area at a time, so that they wouldn't have to use both areas? Or is this so that they can expand across both areas and have more play? Do you know?
So
Does that make sense? I guess my point is, right now, to have 4 full courts, they have to use both sets, right? In order to make that happen. Are they trying to make concessions so that tennis can have one set and they can have the other, and it doesn't matter which one they have? Or are they trying to do it so they can use all of them at the same time?
the demand at certain times is such that when they are playing pickleball, they have people waiting to play. So they need additional courts lined in order to accommodate the number of people that are showing up to play. And this is not all the time, it's only at certain times. But there is a majority of, there are more people that just come and play pickleball that aren't associated with any type of a group. So, you know, the groups are then showing up to play, and there's, you know, already people on the courts either playing tennis or playing pickleball. So, you know, adding additional court spaces where portable nets can be set up, which they actually prefer to play with portable nets as opposed to tennis nets, maximizes the amount of players that they can accommodate during these peak times.
So Abby, if I understand correctly, before it was the added lines to the current tennis courts, right? Added lines so that they can have the pickleball designation. So this is adding additional lines beyond the tennis court lines to give them even more courts to play on. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Would this be in addition to or in replacement of the lines that were previously painted?
In addition to.
Okay, thank you.
Abby, I missed it earlier. What was the park that you said there was some discussion about doing a new installation there, but it felt like too much work?
So that's JC Park. And I don't want it to be construed as though it felt like it was too much work. I think that the bandwidth of staff right now, it's just not something that we could handle. When I look at all of the other projects that are before us, and certainly are time sensitive, such as opening the municipal pool and getting the safety surfacing down at Tahoma, and some other pressing needs with events that are now able to evolve because restrictions have been lifted. So it would just take a little bit more than painting some lines out there. Those courts at JC Park are in dire need of some TLC and need resurfaced before we could even contemplate putting lines down. So this solution that's before you this evening is something that can be completely handled by the pickleball players themselves with no additional assistance needed from the city.
So I would like to actually hear from Kevin, who is I guess one of the more active and avid tennis people in our group here. With adding lines beyond the baseline of the tennis court, how would this impact? Will this impact tennis at all? Is it going to be okay? Can we do this, or is there could be some negatives on the tennis player side?
Well, thank you for that. I was thinking this, the ones by Long Avenue, those two white additional lines was good. The one over by Longwell Avenue, with the other set, I still feel in a way maybe the last court by the alley, I feel no, but the interior one fine, but I understand, but I also think with all the extra lines for real tennis players, it is a distraction. But I would go with what everybody feels. I'm just glad I walk by there 4 times a day, and they are active, bringing in people to use the courts. So in a way, I'm torn about. I love to see courts being used for pickleball or tennis.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's kind of a positive problem to have, right? Facilities that are in such high demand that we need more of them. That's kind of, that's a good thing. We don't want to build facilities that nobody goes to. But I do, yeah, I am concerned, as Jennifer pointed out, that it could potentially, and as Kevin mentioned, isolate a particular subset of the community. We want to be as inclusive as possible. But again, if the demand is there, I'm leaning more towards being in favor of adding all the lines that they want, because if the demand is there and it's going to get people out there and using it, that to me is a good thing. Abby, I did have another question. I know JC's Park tennis courts are in need of resurfacing. Was that already on the schedule, like for the, say, next 5 years, or would that be something that we would have to, that would have to be escalated or thought about more in the more near term?
Great question. That's actually something that would have to be escalated or given more serious consideration, simply because they were very underutilized courts. And there was actually contemplation of looking at JC Park and redesigning the entire space into more of a user-friendly sports complex, which would ultimately have focused more on athletic fields and less on sports courts. So,
Madam Chair.
Councilman Dayhoff.
Yeah, I think JC Park, I think we're looking at doing a study of JC Park to see how it is that we can best utilize the facilities there to incorporate some additional athletic fields. And I think out of an abundance of caution, maybe we put off any decision to do anything in the way of pickleball courts or whatever out there until we see what it is that we want that park to look like in the future. I think also, I guess I have a question about the experiment of adding the pickleball lines. Have we received any feedback from the neighbors as to the hours of operation for the pickleball court? I think there was some discussion that I had overheard, and I don't know if it was in this group or if perhaps it was in another group, that was it 10 o'clock? Was it 9 o'clock? The hours of operation, and perhaps that might be a little too late. Ms. Gruber, I guess.
we haven't received any negative feedback about
Okay,
the
okay.
hours of operation for the pickleball courts.
Okay, well then, if it's okay with Mr. Wogman, I don't see any reason to not go ahead and add the courts for the reasons that Mr. Burrows brought up.
Well, I have a good question though. If we were to do lines, those extra lines, and just force two of the three of those sports, and then add the next one later, is there any cost difference or anything else? I mean, I guess the way I saw the diagram, right, there was one set of tennis courts that will be untouched, and then the one next to the court next to them would have white lines, and then the other side of the street, those two sets of courts would have lines added. So I'm wondering whether or not could we just do the two on the bottom part of the diagram and leave the one on the top part of the diagram alone, and then see how demand really is before, then add that if it really comes down to that. I guess I also don't want the tennis players to feel like, you know, their courts are, if it distracts them or anything like that, but they still have, you know, a set of tennis courts together, which is tennis, and then a set that is a hybrid. Is that possible?
Anything is possible. It's time and it's paint. So, you know, there's no mobilization fees. If you chose to authorize additional lines on only 2 out of the 4, you could do that. 1 out of the 4, but whatever the recommendation is of the board, certainly adding any additional lines would alleviate some of the demand that the groups are feeling for spaces to play. So it probably would be easier if in fact you could say, we'll add additional lines to the set of 2 by Winter Street, as opposed to saying, you know, 1 on this side and 1 on that side, if you were going to eliminate that's a court for additional lining. That way they're just working in 1 set of courts when they're laying it out.
Okay, so my recommendation would be for now, just like wherever, I don't know my streets very well yet, so it's, you know, on your diagram, the bottom left corner, like those sets there, and then that street, and then you have just tennis courts, and then you had court. So I would recommend, how about we just do the bottom set only?
Patty, have you gotten much negative feedback from the tennis community in terms of the lines being too distracting or anything? I mean, have they had much to say about the lines that we've already added, I guess?
So no negative feedback as far as additional lines are concerned. Now there, you know, we discussed it at the April meeting, they were sorting out their schedules. So, and I've not heard anything on that front since April. So I'm assuming that everyone has sort of found their place and they've worked it out. So, but no negative feedback as far as too many lines and confusing for play or anything like that at this time.
But then now we're talking about adding additional lines beyond the courts, right? So it's even more lines. And then I guess what I'm wondering is whether or not if all three of those, if the other sort of courts were also designated pickleball, if people can just show up and play, that's great and all. But then that means that the tennis players will have less courts available to them to play if they want to show up and just play too. So I kind of want, I guess for me, I'm just wondering whether or not we can just kind of wait and see a little bit, just do some of them. And then if it really has a high demand and they can engage how it is, then add the lines to the other set. That's what I propose.
But currently they all have some sort of pickleball lines on them, right? Because the green ones you said are the existing pickleball lines that we've already done. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, if I'm reading this right, there's 4 tennis courts and 5 currently lined pickleball courts. What they would like to do is turn every single tennis court into essentially 2 pickleball courts with portable nets. And I like Jennifer's idea a lot because that basically gives them 4 courts on one surface to play, and that leaves 2 tennis courts wide open. And if they need 2 additional pickleball courts, there's 1 tennis court on the other side that's already lined for 2 pickleball courts. So that gives them a total of 6 courts that they can play on and leaving an entire tennis court open. So I kind of like that idea of kind of the best of both worlds, giving them a total of 6 courts to play pickleball while leaving a tennis court open for tennis play.
Well, actually, they now have 6, 2, 4, 6, 8 courts, 10 courts for pickleball. If we do the lower courts in the weight, that will give them 4 more courts. I agree with Jennifer, the one on Long Avenue, if an upper court we leave alone, to me, that would be less lines for you to decide whether it was playable as a tennis court.
Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. I think that's a good idea. It would be great. Hopefully we can find a way just to inform the communities, or at least those representatives that we have contact with, that the one might be more specifically tennis oriented, we'll say. I'd hate for the tennis or the pickleballers to come out and immediately go to that court and then, you know, kind of suck up everything all of a sudden. But I like the idea of kind of piecemealing it together and seeing if that gives them enough. And if not, having the ability to then to go back later. The other thing I think is if we deploy them to go put out the lines now, you know, and paint them, they'd probably want to do that all at once, I would assume, which would then take a lot of courts out of commission while that's happening. Which again could be an issue because then tennis can't play while the courts are shut down. And I know that was an issue last time when we added the lines that, you know, courts were kind of out of commission for a little while, and there was some frustration surrounding that. So I like the idea of doing kind of one set and seeing how that goes, and if that kind of gives them what they need. So do we have a motion to make a recommendation about lining these pickleball courts? Do we want to proceed in that way?
I move to, I guess, propose to add lines to whatever those courts were on the bottom left corner of the diagram, and leave the one in the top corner alone. I don't know what the streets are. That's what I propose.
We have a motion for Ms. Yang to add lines to the 2 courts closest to Winter Street. Do we have a second?
I
Yeah,
second it.
Oh, we have all kinds of seconds. Awesome. Mr. Ambrose with the second. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're good. The ayes have it. So we will make a recommendation for lining the pickleball courts closest to, or the tennis courts closest to Winter Street with the additional lines for pickleball. So they can add, I guess that's adding 2 more courts to that area. So
I will just want to make one little editorial note here, and that is that long term, I would love to see us think about ways to spread the love to some other parks in the area.
and I believe, Mr. Ambrose, you were not at the last meeting.
Sounds about right.
I think you had to miss that one, unfortunately, but we did have some discussion, just so that you know, about potentially at some point, just kind of looking at across, our entire system of parks and seeing where there might be some potential, but also we discussed the master planning at Wakefield Valley and how there was some potential there as well for some specific courts to go in. So kind of, we put that on hold for now, but definitely it was a discussion to see how we can expand for both groups opportunities around the city. So hopefully we'll have some more opportunities.
I do see that in the notes. Just wanted to keep raising my hand on it.
Nope, I think it's great to make sure we don't lose sight of that as we continue in these discussions. So thank you. All right, Abby, that was number 1.
I know, I promised the rest are shorter. So moving on to Flower and Jazz recap. If anybody remembers, the Saturday before Mother's Day, May 8th, brought some challenging weather to the area for an outdoor event. I don't think I've ever put things away and gotten things out more times during an event than I did on Saturday, May 8th. However, with heavy winds and hail and pouring down rain and thunderstorms, it still felt like it was a successful event. When the weather cooperated, the crowd emerged from wherever they were hiding, and there were people within the festival footprint. So that was great. It was just good to be able to provide an event like that to the community after a very long year of not having any opportunities like that. So certainly it was a challenging day for our vendors. I felt badly for some of them. Some of them lost product because, the wind was just too much of an opponent. And we did our best as a staff to be out there helping hold down tents and pack things up as quickly as we could, just to prevent any loss or damage to those brave vendors that stuck with us for the day. So all in all, I would consider it a success, albeit a challenging day for the staff and the vendors. And I can roll into the picture of upcoming 2021 events unless someone has anything to add about Flower and Jazz.
Good work. I was there. It was great.
Yes, I saw you walk through.
The wind, I can't even believe that you guys were able to do anything. It was insane, but it was great. I'm so glad that it did go on. And we'll talk more about volunteer outreach and response and all that after you're done. But the other thing I'm wondering is if there's an opportunity to thank our vendors as well for participating and doing something, even if it's just, again, a quick note to them or something, just to say thanks for being there, especially knowing what happened at this event specifically, but just in general, so they continue to want to come back and realize that we're really grateful for them being a part of these special events. But we can continue that discussion later, just a thought.
Well, and one of the strategies that we did actually utilize during the event itself was, as the weather just kept delivering blow after blow, The staff member on the Recreation and Parks team that is in charge of the vendors, I authorized her to run upstairs and print out a 20% off of next year's vendor space coupon for anyone that was hanging in there with us on Saturday. So we gave them lots of flowers and a coupon to say, we recognize the fortitude that you're displaying, and please don't be dissuaded by participating next year. So.
Awesome. I love that.
So the governor announced some exciting, I guess, lifted restrictions last week, which quickly allowed us to pull together a meeting to evaluate if we had enough time to pivot our plans for the beer and barbecue stroll. And after meeting and talking it through with the Recreation and Parks staff, we felt we had the capacity to do so. We reached out to our other stakeholders, which are the police department and the streets department, to see if they were comfortable with the decision to move the event back out to Main Street. And I am so elated to announce tonight that City of Westminster events are returning to Main Street. So yes, and it is with all the credit due to the police departments and streets department, because when we made this change, it requires a lot more staffing on their part. We had to do some additional permitting, which we had to rush through the State Highway Administration, and we had to resubmit our plans to Carroll County Liquor Control because our festival footprint completely changed. And so it was a team effort that was just kind of jammed into the end of last week, but I think it will be worthwhile. We had to discuss what we were going to do with the table tickets that were already sold. Jennifer's shaking her head because she bought one, two. So we've identified a great strategy for what that will look like for our table ticket holders. By all means, if they feel that the value isn't there, they certainly can request a refund. But we've essentially turned our table ticket holders into what used to be our VIP ticket holders. It will look a little different. So a table ticket holder, and all of this information will be going out tomorrow in an email to ticket holders. We just finished the final draft today. So essentially what it will look like for table ticket holders that elect to keep their table tickets is they will have reserved seating on the library lawn, which are front row seats to the band. So we set up right in front of the stage. They will be the only ones that have access to that area. The festival will open 1 hour early to table ticket holders. So it will only be those that have tables that can visit all of the vendors and start to sample without lines. And in addition to that, table ticket holders are eligible for free samples. Anyone else coming into the festival under general admission will have to pay for samples as they go. So that is the value that we were able to add to the table tickets. And I see Jennifer's approval, which is fantastic. And we'll be able to evaluate the response from the other tables that we've sold once we force that information out tomorrow. Otherwise, it's a $10 general admission ticket. And as I said, it's a la carte at the barbecue and distillery and brewery vendors.
So Abby, quick question.
Authorization.
Abby, quick question. So are you guys going to, I know you had not sold out yet of tables. Are you guys going to cut off any more table sales? Are you guys going to keep selling it to that limit?
So one of the tasks that we had on our plate last week was to go over and measure the library lawn and see what our capacity for table seating would be. And I think that we decided that was 30 tables, which I believe then that makes us sold out or nearly sold out. So stay
So
tuned.
did you guys combine the two seatings into one big thing, right? Is what you guys did?
Yes,
Okay.
so the festival time will be noon to 4 general admission, 11 to 4 for table ticket holders.
But there's no more two seatings of table holders then, right? It's the whole time
there.
for one table.
You got it. You're there the
Okay.
whole time for one table. Mhm. It would be
You know,
too
interest-
hard for us to chase people out.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because when we went to Flower and Jazz, a couple of our guests actually said that they liked it this way. They liked to be able to get their samples and sit down and relax and enjoy and listen to the music and all that stuff and everything. So they kind of like this. They said, why couldn't this continue as like the VIP type of thing at this festival? So they will be happy to hear about this change because they're coming with us to the Beer Barbecue Festival also, that they get to have the best of both worlds now. So yes, it's awesome.
Excellent. Good. Glad to hear that. So in addition to sort of our first event out of the gate with no restrictions on outdoor venues or events, then we decided that until things change, we are planning as normal for the remainder of our 2021 events, which means our Recreation and Parks Month celebration events will occur. And then the next big one would be Fall Fest, which we are anticipating. We will have the parade on Thursday night, and the festival will operate on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the last full weekend in September. So we've reached out to the charities that were selected to be our charity partners in 2020 when it was canceled, to see who is still willing to be a charity partner and recruit a lot of volunteers. So we're waiting to hear back from them. We gave them a time period of which we would need to hear back. And certainly we'll discuss further once we know what that picture looks like. And Oyster Stroll will certainly be on Main Street unless things change, as well as it looks like we'll be able to have Miracle on Main Street, the tree lighting, Santa's Treat, and all of our great hometown events. So we're pretty excited to be able to be planning in a manner that we have done successfully in the past and not reinvent the wheel for all of these that are coming up. So that is my 2021 upcoming event update.
I think that all sounds awesome, Abby. We're very excited. We're all sitting on mute, but I'm over here giving you woohoos and cheers. So excited for you all and your staff so that you can get back to normal and don't have to continue with these crazy planning sessions, but also for the community and what that means for all these events to come back. So awesome. Wakefield Valley. Woohoo.
Yes. So I met with the lead consultant, Pete Stone, on May 12th, and I was able to review some of the final aspects of the master plan report. So this is the report that will go along with that beautiful picture of what the park hopefully will look like many, many years and many, many phases down the road. So we were going over cost estimation figures for what the price tag on the park looks like in totality. We discussed some revisions to the plan as far as what would be paved surface versus natural surface trails, and some different ideas for bridges, because certainly the trail system gets expensive in a hurry when we contemplate all of the bridges that need to be installed in the nearly 8 miles of trails that are reflected on the current version of the master plan. So certainly it was a lively discussion, and they were going back to do a little more research and put some additional details and finishing touches into the report. I am hoping that we will have a final presentation to the mayor and council on June 14th. That's the target date at this moment. But aside from the master planning process, there's a very fun project evolving that is actually working in concert with the city's initiative to become a bee city. And it looks like we will be moving forward with planting a field of sunflowers out at Wakefield. And the really great part is it's almost dipping our toe into the start of the master planning process, because the area that they've elected to use is actually an area that is reflected on the master plan as a pollinator garden site right now. So it's pretty exciting to almost feel like we're starting the process, albeit a small yet very beautiful step in the right direction. So that is positive. I am actually also in the process of writing and submitting a grant application for program open space funding. That application is due on Friday. And it will allow us, again, just to continue to pull some funding sources in so that we can start to advance the goals of the master plan. We have this really great idea of what the community would like the park to look like. But certainly there is a ton of work that has to go into making that a reality before you even put a shovel in the dirt. So there's a lot of design and engineering, cataloging of natural resources and permitting that all cost money that has to be done before any very exciting things begin to proliferate at the site. That's why it was really fun to understand that the sunflower pollinator garden will be planted, because there is at least some visual reminders that we are working hard at that site, even though not a lot seems to be happening.
And the parking lot was repaved?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So it was supposed to be. CJ Miller keeps updating their date that they are going to be on site. I think they've had some challenging weather conditions that have pushed their entire work schedule behind. They had talked about being there this past weekend, and that was delayed. And so now they're looking at after Memorial Day is basically as concise as I can get right now until I hear back from them. So.
Will that sunflower field be open? I mean, can the public go walk through it and see it and do all those things? I know those sunflower gardens around, Carroll County and beyond are so popular, and people love to go and take pictures and run through them. Is that something that's going to be a part of this, or how are you envisioning the use of that space?
Well, it's really not my project. I have to give credit to the Environmental Action Council at, is it Westminster High School, Councilman Dayhoff? Okay, and also the Carroll County Beekeepers Association, plus our superstar streets department. They're all spearheading the effort, along with our new mayor, Mona Becker, and former councilperson, Dr. Wack. So they're all behind the scenes making this happen. And one of the emails that came out was certainly someone speaking to the benefits, not only for bees, but for visitors to this type of initiative, that they really bring people into communities because people use them to take photographs and visit and just sort of drink in the beauty of such a concentration of very showy flowers. So yes, that is definitely something that has already been identified as a potential use.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Dayhoff.
Director Gruber, and you've already, the street department's already, they've already rototilled an area, correct?
I know that they were prepping the site and they were
Okay.
trying to push up the planting date because of the germination. But to be perfectly honest with you, I did not visit the emails in depth enough to understand if it's already been prepped.
Okay, yeah, because I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and as a matter of fact, I just got 3 questions about it while we're in the meeting. So apparently, I guess I was sent a picture of the area and folks were curious, and maybe some temporary signage or something as to what it is that we're doing out there would be awesome. That would be great, because I'm not in the loop on this one. So And maybe we could have a presentation from the Environmental Action Group at some time in the future about it, because I think it's pretty exciting. I've worked with that Environmental Action Group to do a riparian study at Wakefield Valley, and that was a lot of fun, and I learned an awful lot. Maybe we could have a presentation by them in the future, because anything with sunflowers is pretty cool. That would be fun. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I just got another one. That's amazing. That's amazing. I wonder, yeah. And I don't think they're listening to I don't think they're listening to the meeting. I mean, it's just, I have a whole bunch of folks that give me feedback who walk through the park, and I call them my Wakefield Valley watchers. And so that we can stay ahead of when dead trees impede upon the trail and things like that. Oh, now that's fascinating. Steve Strasburg just sent me a text about it.
He might be watching.
He might, yeah. Now Steve might be watching. That's true. Hi, Steve. Thanks for all your work. You guys are awesome. When we start doing in-person meetings, it might be fun to have Steve to come to the meetings, because he's a rock star.
Now you're just giving him one more thing to do.
Well, that's a true story. Yeah, but he's in the club that likes to work. So I mean, it's all good. He loves what he does. So, okay, cool. That's all
Any
I
other
got.
questions about Wakefield? Oh, Councilman Dayhoff, yes?
Oh, I got a lot of positive feedback from the vendors at the Flower and Jazz Festival. I did. I got a lot of positive. I mean, there's only but so, I may be a chaplain, but there's only but so much I can do about the weather. I got a lot of positive feedback. So,
Good.
I mean, I think it was really well planned. I think it was well executed, and I think everyone, I didn't really hear anything negative. I didn't. So it's all good. And we're going to look forward to the beer and barbecue. I'm going to sit at Ms. Yang's table. She doesn't know it yet. I thought we could get it. Okay.
Oh, now she's driving.
Oh, now she's driving. Too
Oh,
fun.
boy. All right, if there are no other questions about Wakefield, strategic planning.
Yes, only one update on this. We did identify June 4th as a date for our next facilitated strategic planning session with Ms. Yang. So we have that as a save the date on all of our staff calendars. And I believe that will hold unless anything comes up that would prevent us from being able to meet. So we're looking forward to making additional progress on that strategic plan.
I think the first report was awesome. I'm so excited for you guys. I think it's a great experience for everybody. And I think hopefully it'll lead to really great things. Not that you guys aren't already doing great things, but excited to see what happens in this next phase. So thanks. And thanks to Jennifer, who's driving or something. We won't ask her to respond, but June 4th. We'll
Yes, I'm driving right now, but yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're gonna take the next step and dive a little bit deeper and ride this wave of momentum. So I'm excited for it too.
And thank you again for all that work. I think it's just awesome. All right, so budget initiatives. I know this is exciting. So we'll just go right to it.
Yes, so the city's budget was adopted at the May 10th meeting of the Mayor and Common Council. And so I thought it would be interesting to share with the board the capital improvement projects that were funded and are on deck to start in fiscal year 22. The first project that is on my list are Longwell building improvements, and this is specifically our continued endeavor into improving the locker room facilities. So we did accomplish the shower room renovation this current fiscal year. And certainly after that was completed, I said it was like painting one wall in your dining room. Then you look around and you're like, oh, I got to paint everything else. So the lockers that are currently in our locker room / changing area are metal. They have been in existence for a very long time, and some of the bottoms have rusted out. They're in very poor condition. And so we will be looking at getting high density plastic lockers installed in the changing areas so that, you know, they will last hopefully forever. In addition to that, then this project also contemplates improvements to the restroom areas. So we will be installing new plastic bathroom partitions, new countertops, new plumbing fixtures, because we have sort of a very eclectic collection of hot and cold faucets, and it's just things have been replaced over time and we can't find matching parts. So everything is a little mixed and matched, so to speak. And our countertops are delaminating. So it will be nice to get some new plumbing fixtures in there, new countertops, and bathroom partitions that aren't rusting. So I'm looking forward to that project. And our community pool improvements are the big project on tap. And I am happy to report that I finally got the request for proposals in final format and sent off to the finance department today. They were through legal review and review by the interim city administrator. And so I am hoping to see that posted out on eMaryland Marketplace as soon as possible. The goal for that project is that it would begin. So contracts would be awarded on or before Labor Day so that work could commence as soon as the pool closes for the 2021 season. Because I do anticipate that it will take from Labor Day until Memorial Day to complete the improvements. In addition to that, funding has been set aside in the CIP for Wakefield Valley improvements. There is $200,000 set aside. However, most of this is grant funded money. It is reflected in our capital improvement budget because the money is expended and then reimbursed by the granting agencies. So right now we know that $90,000 is grant funded. And if I am successful in this program open space application that is due on Friday, we should have an additional $99,000. So that line item in the capital improvement fund actually will be almost fully reimbursed by grant funding. In addition to Wakefield Valley improvements, there is also $200,000 allocated in the capital improvement plan for Durbin House rehabilitation. This actually, half of it, we anticipate funding coming from MHAA, that's the Maryland Historical Areas Authority, in the amount of $100,000. We are required to match that dollar for dollar, which is why you see the allocation of $200,000 in the capital improvement fund, because again, you spend the money upfront and are reimbursed for it as you spend it. So last two items in the capital improvement budget. These also have to do with the Longwell building, our gymnasium, which has many, many historic windows in it, are no opponent to basketballs and other objects that are thrown or people. So we've had a couple accidents where we've had some elbows going through glass window panes and balls breaking window panes. And so it's been an interesting year. We do have internal storm windows that were manufactured, custom made actually, when the windows were refurbished back in 2014. However, they are made from aluminum frames and plexiglass. And because of their sheer size, the weight of the plexiglass has now warped the aluminum frames, and a lot of them have fallen out or are no longer functional. So the internal storms have become sort of a safety hazard in their own right. So we put our heads together with the streets department to come up with a different type of protection that would go over the windows. And so we're going to be basically installing like decorative, I don't want to say bars on the window, but imagine a garden gate that's on hinges that would swing open, so we can still open the windows and let airflow into the gymnasium, because we don't have heating or air conditioning in there. So we have to rely on Mother Nature for our heating and air conditioning. And so we have to be able to put the windows up and down, and then we can basically swing this gate shut that goes across the window, so that it protects everything, whether the window is up or down. So we are very much looking forward to that project, and fewer accident reports. And lastly, we do have some phased replacement of cardio equipment that is also reflected in the capital improvement program. And this will allow us to evaluate our cardio equipment that is used the most. So generally speaking, equipment that is on the end of a row gets used harder. So we'll move pieces out that are less utilized and begin to replace the ones that are utilized more. And we actually keep track of that. And there's a way to actually look at that with a little counter that is hidden on all of those pieces of equipment. So we can see what the actual run time is. And certainly we won't replace things until they become problematic, but cardio equipment is kind of like a used car. And once things start to go wrong, it just sort of compounds after a while, and then it becomes not cost effective to continue to fix the things that are going wrong. So that is what the Recreation and Parks Department has to look forward to in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2022. And that ends all of my updates, unless there are questions.
Madam
Abby, I know
Chair.
there was a lot of debate last year on the budget for the fitness center. And I'm wondering, not tonight, but at a future meeting, if you would be willing, if the rest of the board is interested in just hearing about your usage of the fitness center over the last year and what the plans are to continue to scale that usage moving forward. Not because of a criticism on my part, but just out of curiosity.
I actually am prepared to give you an update. Not talking in specific dollar amounts, but the Family Fitness Center is in a positive cash position, and it it looks like we will not only meet our revenue goal, but exceed that. And if the numbers that were trending in April hold true, we will probably come out with about $40,000 to the good on the revenue side of things. So
That's awesome.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Dayhoff.
To tag along with what Mr. Ambrose just said, I wonder if perhaps, I guess one of our meetings can take place at the Longwell building, the Longwell at the old Armory, and perhaps we could get a tour. I think that would be, and we could look over the improvements and look over some of the plans that we have. But to reinforce what your answer to Mr. Ambrose, the fitness center fiscally is just looking great, and will only improve as we come out of COVID-19. And I think a lot of the discussion that took place about the fitness center, I think I think those discussions have been answered, and I think we're in good shape.
Awesome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Deha. Thank you so much, Abby, for your updates and for all that you do, as always. It's just exciting that these events have been happening this year, even with the COVID restrictions and all the craziness that has come with that, and weather now with this most recent one, but now so much excitement with what's to come. And as you can see from a 2-table ticket holder, sounds like your plans for beer and barbecue are going to be well received. So that's really exciting. It sounded great to me. If I were a table ticket holder, I'd be thrilled with that solution. So I think it's awesome. So kudos to you and your team for, again, coming up with some of that kind of on the fly and just responding to be able to expand the whole event for everyone and still make it really great for those who had already committed. So with that being said, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on. The volunteer outreach piece again, which is something to put back on the agenda after the discussion last time. And perhaps goes with the next item as well. My thought is just, and if anybody else has any other thoughts about this, or if I'm the only one who wants to do it, I'll do it. But we discussed finding a way to thank our volunteers, even if it's just a handwritten note or a call or a something, to let them know how important they are to the success of these events, knowing that volunteers are in short supply these days. So we want to make sure they know how valued they are, and hopefully that'll entice them to come back. And sometimes that's all it takes is a kind word and a quick phone call or a quick, handwritten note, and that's it. So, whether we want to distribute a list and break it up, or just say, if we can start having some of these meetings in person, maybe take a few minutes before or after to fill out a few notes and get those sent. If Abby has a list of volunteers, maybe that she can bring, and we can tackle some of that. But finding a way in some format, to do that and to make sure those individuals really feel the love.
Do we have any city specific sanctioned or Parks and Rec preferred stationery that we should be using? Should we have any?
So prior to
card or whatever.
Yeah, when we were in 2019, we were moving fully into a volunteer incentive program that we had developed along with staff, and it was really great. And if you volunteered X amount of hours, you'd earn a free pool pass, and then or a free fitness center membership. We had sort of these tiers for volunteerism set up, and we were diligent. After every event, we would sit down and handwrite thank you notes that were mailed out to everybody that volunteered. And we're still trying to do that, but we've had so few volunteer responses. We did have some really great volunteers for Flower and Jazz that were out there in really terrible conditions. And I do need to circle back with staff to see if those notes have gone out yet. But we've just kind of purchased big boxes of thank you notes locally and wrote those, because I think if we would have had to get into getting stationery or cards printed, we probably never would have gotten our incentive program off the ground. So we would be, we would love that. I think it looks a little more official, but it's just not, we kind of put the priority on just getting it out the door, as opposed to fine tuning it. And then we didn't need volunteers for quite some time. So there was, just kind of a stalling out of those initiatives.
Is there an official process you have to go through to get those things printed, or is that something you have access to the proper logos and things and can have that done yourself? Do you have to go through a certain department and they have to order it for you, or is that something that we could just do if you have the right files and the right information?
I'm pretty sure that's something that we could just go ahead and have printed, as long as we were using either the Recreation and Parks logo or the city seal.
Perfect. Okay.
The less bureaucracy, the better.
Oh, absolutely. I've
Yeah.
been involved with some that require a whole lot of, you
Yeah, we
know,
don't want to.
if
But
we
you know
don't have to
what?
do that, that'd be much easier. So,
But you know what might be fun, because I mean, I volunteered at the Flower and Jazz Festival. It might be nice if we had name tags that we were on the Recreation Advisory Board, because once folks didn't know that I was a council member, somebody identified me as a volunteer on the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, and in that capacity, I got questions. So it might be kind of fun for the events that are coming up if we could make some name tags. Probably wouldn't have that awkward a price point to have them made. I mean, is that something that would be okay with the chair or Director Gruber?
I think Abby and I can work together to come up with a solution for that. And
I think that would be cool,
stationary
because
issue as well. So,
Yeah, I mean, name
especially-
tags are easy, right? I mean, we could use
Yeah.
off your own printer and print them. And if you need, actually, if you guys ever need plastic name badge holders or lanyards with holders, I have a gazillion of those. So
I have a
I'd be more
pile
than
of them.
happy to give them to you. It's from past charity events, so we don't want to throw away the plastic, so we keep them
Right.
from event after event after event. So we have like lanyards, we have a bunch. So if you need like a handful of them for the volunteers or for whomever, let me know. I'll go try to find them, and y'all can just have them. So
Well, I've got a box of them too, but I was looking for something a little bit more formal,
official.
something more official.
And you're
Uh,
saying specifically for our board.
Yeah, specifically for our board.
oh, fancy stuff. Got it.
Yeah, something, I mean, you know, not to necessarily mention one particular vendor, but Staples does them. I have a number of other vendors that we could use. And the price point's usually fairly accessible. So
Yes.
if we could, if the chair and Director Gruber could work on
Yes.
that, that would be awesome. Yeah.
With a magnetic back.
Magnetic back, or often the magnetic backs fall off on me. Maybe, you know, maybe pins or whatever you all decide. Yeah,
We'll work on that.
cool. Okay, that's great. Something that, so when I go over to Ms. Yang's table for the beer and barbecue festival, that I can just zip right on by security. I've got a badge.
And people can ask you all the questions. I'll hide my badge. I can enjoy my barbecue and beer, and they can ask you
No,
all
I
the
usually direct all the questions to Mr. Ambrose and to Mr. Burrows.
as I was taking this call today at happy hour, and my peanut gallery was yelling out about Wakefield, right? So I mean, right?
Yeah, we saw your disc golf.
Yeah, they were yelling about that.
Is the disc golf in the plans? Because I've heard from several folks about that. That's a lot of fun.
That is fun.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
that's a lot of
really
fun.
easy. It's not that hard infrastructure wise to put up, right? So, yeah. My friend did say he's written many emails about disc golf. So Abby, you probably have seen my
Yeah.
friend saying it a few times.
Yes, they spoke loud and clear. So
Do you
we have
form-
a good plan.
Do you form teams or whatever? We could have the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board team. Yeah,
A disc golf team.
yeah. I think it'd be fun. I mean, I don't know.
All right. So it sounds like we'll work on name tags and stationery, and then go from there and see what else we can do to be a part
Great.
of this system of stewardship and gratitude for our volunteers. So, and maybe even look at your incentive program and what you guys already have in place, and see where we can kind of fit into that and help to expand that a little bit.
Just a quick suggestion there is that it may at some point behoove us to consider ThankView or one of the other ways of doing quick video thank yous. I know, at least for me, my handwriting is atrocious, and not to discount the personal touch that could bring, but I might rather record a quick cell phone video, or even work with the group to put together a little video reel of all of us saying thank you, that we could then send out to people electronically. So just wanted to put that on our radar.
No, I agree. And I think it might even be who is sending the message, right? So you might love to do something like ThankView, which I think is awesome, because then you can literally get on there and say, hey Jess, this is Josh, thanks for being an awesome volunteer at our last event, or whatever you're gonna say, and then move on. And then for somebody else, it might be that they prefer to write. Maybe Jennifer prefers to write. She's, who knows, but whatever our format might be, it might be nice too, for there to be different ways that we can communicate depending on what that is. But thank you is a perfect one. I've used that a lot, and people get really excited when they all of a sudden have this video and it's to them and it's specific. It's not just hey, we recorded this for 20 different people, but you can actually, add a little, personal message in the beginning. So I think that's a great idea to look into.
I think it's a neat idea.
Those opportunities. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to make them.
Yeah, it is fun. I watch all the hiker videos, so I've been practicing. I've been
Kevin has a
watching
green
a
light.
number of the Appalachian Trail through hikers, and it's kind of fascinating. So I've been trying to practice.
We're all gonna
Maybe I can get
selfie
some
sticks.
pointers from Josh.
There you go.
Abby,
Yes.
how about, I don't know if this is possible, but how about a event table full of volunteers as a reward, that they could be the guests of Parks and Recreation?
So for instance, at like the beer and barbecue stroll, we reserve a table for them that they, okay. That's
Now,
a,
I know that is somewhat expensive, but it puts forth, we really care and appreciate what you are doing, and you are going above. So I suggest we go above.
I would just second that. I think that's a brilliant idea, because like I'm feeling motivated to sign up to volunteer with that suggestion. And I already do volunteer at different things, but that motivates me in a way that a thank you card would not. So I think it's a brilliant idea, Kevin.
I agree.
Are the shifts for the volunteers typically the entire event, or is it broken down? How does that work?
so one of the strategies that we've employed before, and we have to be careful too with events, because we do have a lot of youth volunteers. So we offer an incentive to have like a free ticket to the wine stroll, that we have to make sure that they're only being provided to those of age. But that's what we've done in the past, where we said, okay, here are these different shifts, and if you work the morning shift, you'll get a ticket to attend the wine stroll in the afternoon. That usually works really well for the morning shift. It doesn't work so well for the afternoon shift, because they attend the wine stroll and then they don't show up to volunteer. So so we've sort of strategized to get volunteers in that manner before, but I like Kevin's suggestion, whereby maybe they're just earning sort of a day at a festival in sort of a VIP or reserved area, because they've worked up until that point. So that kind of falls in line with that incentive program that we have in place.
And with youth, we could offer them a pool pass for a week or 2 days. And that would be then age appropriate.
Yeah, I can send out like I said, sort of that framework that we were utilizing for volunteer incentive, and then because we did have it parceled out between youth and adult volunteers with some of the rewards that we were offering. So you guys can sort of look at that and decide if there are other incentives that you think would be valuable to add to it, or if you want to scrap it and look at something completely different. But yeah, we would certainly be appreciative of any input or feedback or any initiatives that you'd like to take on that front, because sometimes, a great example is we had 2 weeks between the wine stroll and Flower and Jazz. And so you're really just kind of focused on getting the next event out the door. So to then squeeze in timely thank yous to volunteers, it really compresses that time frame. So any help we have with rewards and incentives to volunteers, we certainly would be relieved and appreciative of that.
Awesome. Well, if you can send us that framework that you have, we'll review that, and then maybe we can continue the discussion once we can see what that looks like, and everyone can put some thoughts to some additions that we can make or some changes that might seem appropriate. So we'll wait for that, and Abby and I will work on name tags. So the next item is a little more than just scheduling the next meeting, but in light of everything that's going on, Abby and I have been talking for a while now about how it'd be really exciting to actually get this group together in person. And so potentially scheduling our next meeting to be in person if that's possible. And then if anybody can't make it in person, we could still find a way to have obviously a virtual format so you can join us that way as well. But with that, we also talked about maybe having it be almost like a field trip. We could go to a park and check it out that, you know, has been a part of one of our discussions or agendas, or the fitness center, as was just suggested, but finding a location that might be meaningful so that we can start to make our way around kind of the facilities that exist in the Recreation and Parks Department, so that we're even more informed, and as a group can kind of look at things and have a discussion and further, you know, our discussions that we have within these meetings as well. So how's everyone feeling about that? First of all, in person, can we do that? Does that
We should
sound
play a
good?
game of pickleball.
A game of pickleball. See, that was the other thing I thought of the other day. We promised the pickleballers that we would try it, and I was like, I can just see us out there trying to have a meeting and play.
I'm good with in person.
All right. So
I
we
already met
will,
Abby and her team in person anyway. Our strategy sessions were all at the fitness center in person. So I'm all for that.
very good. Well, we will plan for that. Would anybody like to suggest a specific location? Do we want to start at the fitness center? Or do we want to start outdoors somewhere? We also talked about making sure wherever we go, if it's an outdoor venue, that we have at least a pavilion to get under in case the weather isn't perfect. Anybody have any thoughts or suggestions?
I think the fitness center is a great idea. I actually have never toured the inside of it, and I would love it. And I think there's plenty of room to spread out and socially distance if anybody wants to do that. And I think it's very germane to the conversations we've been having.
Perfect.
There are also rooms in there that can be used for a meeting as well. And we're a small enough group too. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, then that being said, I think we can go ahead and plan, unless anything comes up between now and then. The second Tuesday of June would be June 8th. So as long as that sounds good, we'll say June 8th at the fitness center. Do we want to plan a tour just before our meeting or just after our meeting, or what do we want to do there? Walk and talk?
After meeting.
After?
I would just propose that it's not a 3-hour event, and maybe we have a condensed meeting, and walk and talk is not a bad idea.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's say June 8th at 6 p.m. at the fitness center then.
And we can also pop out to City Park Pavilions if it's really nice. So we could do the tour and then walk straight back through the park to the rear and sit underneath the pavilion.
And it'd be nice to see the courts as well, for those of you who haven't maybe seen them, since they've been lined and with all that's going on out there. Maybe we'll see some action. Tuesday night, that's a pickleball night, right?
There's no one out there right now, surprisingly.
Oh.
Shocking to me.
Oh no, Tuesday was tennis. Tuesday, well, according to my little notes that I wrote down, Tuesday was tennis.
There you go.
Unless they've changed that, I don't know, but that's what we had originally. All right, any other items that we should discuss or issues? I know we've gone really long tonight. I apologize for that. All right, with that, we will adjourn. See you all June 8th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.